Welcome to Week 11, the Cavalier Insider Pregame Show. Andrew Ramspacker, Jerry Ratcliffe on location this week here at John Paul Jones Arena. That's the nifty little backdrop as we ease our way out of football season, eventually into hoops. Obviously, Virginia basketball off to a good start despite the loss last week to VCU. But Virginia football still with a couple games to play until that season ends, and it starts Saturday at Miami. It's a noon kickoff from Sun Life Stadium as UVA enters at 2-8 in the season, trying to break a 7-game losing streak. And Hootie, we coming off of a bye week, it gives us kind of a chance to a bit of a season in review for this Cavalier squad, a team that had some promise there early on with that big win over BYU. Obviously gets trounced predictably against number 2 Oregon at the time. Number 2 Oregon beats VMI, and then it's been all losses since. What to you was kind of the turning point here?
That's a good question. There's just been, there were so many close games that they could have possibly won. I think had they had a more seasoned quarterback who I think could have led them in crucial moments. Not slamming Watford so much because he's a rookie and that's what rookies do. But I think an experienced quarterback, somebody like Michael Rocco, had he stayed around, I think could have won you 2 or 3 more games. Injuries in the latter part of the defense, I think, really hurt and also affected the offensive line at some points during the season. But I think generally it's just a lack of talent and experience in the upper classes. Most of the talent seems to lie in the freshman and sophomore classes, and the more of those guys you play, the more it's going to hurt you because they haven't been in those situations and they're going to make mistakes, and certainly this season's been riddled with mistakes.
Yeah, Virginia has played, I believe, 12 true freshmen to this point of the year, 1 on the offensive line, 1 on the defensive line, obviously 2 areas in the trenches, which are huge. And, one of those was because of an injury. Dante Wilkins had to fill in for Brent Urban. You mentioned the injuries defensively. I think that is a big part of the turning point when I view this season is, when you lose your top 2 corners like Demetrius Nicholson and Maurice Kennedy, I think that really, really hurt and made that secondary exposed. I think the secondary was off to a pretty good start with Anthony Harris in that back end, who's having really good season. It's a shame the team is not having success because individually Anthony Harris is having obviously an all-ACC caliber season. But, losing Brent Urban, of course, hurt. And I think that Maryland game, to me, if that Maryland game goes different, if Alec Vizenelec's field goal doesn't sail wide right as time expires there and they win that, who knows? Maybe they come back and they don't blow a 22-point lead against Duke, and maybe things are different. I mean, there were things here and there, I think, that have led to this. And this is where Virginia sits right now at 2-8, 0-6 in the ACC. It's the, I believe, first 7-game losing streak since, I think,
1981.
1981.
Yes.
So Virginia obviously trying to break that at Miami. And you mentioned David Watford. We've talked about the Michael Rocco, the what-if scenario in an earlier pregame show. But what is your evaluation of Watford? You talked about him being a rookie. He's on pace to set some underclassmen records here at Virginia for, I believe, for first-year underclassmen starters for I think completions and attempts, which is all well and good, but yards-wise, the yards per attempt, yards per completion, not very high. And he's tied with Logan Thomas for the ACC lead in interceptions.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of expectations on a quarterback, no matter what year or what school he's in, and a lot of times they're well deserved. And I will give him credit for pointing the finger at himself on some of his shortcomings. I think sometimes he has struggled with accuracy, and he will admit that. I think he's still has a little problem with maybe some coverage reads, and that will come with maturity. I think he's a good leader. I think he's a stand-up kid and a very smart kid. I think he'll get better as we go along, and I don't know that he'll ever become a Heisman candidate, but I think he'll be a very serviceable quarterback, particularly when he learns more about when and how to run the ball to pick up yardage in tough situations and when to throw it away. I think for essentially a rookie quarterback, he's been about what I would expect, and particularly when they had a lot of problems with receivers early, dropping balls and perhaps not getting open. But I think that his best football is to come. I would say essentially his freshman year as a quarterback, is about what I expected. Maybe I thought the deep passing game would be just a little better, but I don't think that we should have expected great things from a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, certainly. You mentioned the receivers and the drop issues. Obviously, that was big, particularly that Pittsburgh game. I believe there was 10 drops, and it led to a complete shuffle of that wide receiving core. With that being said, looking forward, you expect him to get better. This is the first time in Mike London's tenure where he's basically stuck with one quarterback the whole year. Who knows? David Watford could go out and light up the Hurricanes on Saturday and light up the Hokies the following week, and maybe it's not an issue. But going into spring, do you expect this to still be a competition with Grayson Lambert and Corbin Cutler coming in?
I think that they should certainly give Lambert all the opportunities possible to see what he can do, to see how good he can be, how much he's progressed. We don't really get to see him except in that first week of training camp and mop-up duty during the season. So it's tough for us to really gauge how good he is or how far he's come. But I would expect them to give him every opportunity just to show where he is. Is it enough to unseat Watford, who should get better? I don't know. I can't see Cutler being in the mix. I think they should redshirt him, I believe. Yep. But who knows if Lambert is everything he was supposed to be? Maybe we will have a competition in the spring.
Right, Grayson Lambert, obviously a pretty highly touted recruit out of Georgia. I think we've seen him, as you mentioned, only briefly, only 40 passing attempts, 16 completions in 5 games this season. So really don't have a real good judgment of him at this point. So with that being said, it will be David Watford on Saturday against Miami. We will look ahead to that matchup, the Hurricanes and the Wahoos, in another segment.